Yes, we can pick up. I'll be covering today's Bhismashtami. So primarily be speaking. Yes, we can pick up. I'll be covering today's Bhismashtami. I see. Primarily be speaking. Yes, we can
Guy.
pick up. I was trying to figure out who was speaking. I realized it was myself.
You mute the video
I stopped
on
watching.
YouTube.
I think it's good now. I'm sorry. Anyways, okay, so I was saying, I'll be speaking today on Bhismashtami, one of the 12 Mahajans. You can go ahead and pull up 195. I'm gonna try to share a screen and pull that up. Sorry, I'm not as fast as Chandan with this thing. There we go. Okay. Okay, everybody has 195 up.
You can share your screen, you know.
I just
Okay.
okay. Tatra.
Well, can you zoom in, Prabhu?
Yeah, sorry. Is that better?
No,
It's not better.
it's not zoomed in.
What do you mean by zoomed in? My screen is
Press command and plus. Command and plus.
Command plus. That's not doing anything.
Okay, control plus.
Control plus. Still not doing anything. I think I need to pin this.
No. Make the text bigger.
Besides database.io, there's a little box with 2 lines under it.
Yeah.
You could, like on the iPhone, you could use it to increase the.
Yeah, setting.
Oh,
No, tools. There you go.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, Jai. Oh my Krishna, what just happened? I'm so sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay. How do I get rid of the box? Goodness. Okay. Okay, Tatra. Rama Rishayaha. Sarve. Deva Rishayaha. Cha. Sattama. Raja Rishayaha. Cha. Tatra.
Asan
Drashtum Bharata Pungavam Tatra Brahmarshaya Sarve Devarshayascha Sattama
Devarasya Satsama
Rajarshayascha Tatrasan
Rajasya Chatrasam
Drashtum Bharata Pungavam
Drashtum Bharata Pungavam
Tatra Brahmarshaya Sarve
Tatra Brahma Sarve
Devarshayascha Sattama
Devarasya Sattama
Rajarshayascha Tatrasan
Rajarasya Tatrasan
Drashtum Bharata Pungavam.
Drashtum Bharata Pungavam.
Please repeat.
Go ahead.
Tatra Brahmarshaya Sarve
Tatra Brahma Sarve
Devarshayascha Sattama
Devarasya Sattama
Rajarshayascha tatrasan
Rajarasya sachatrasan
drashtum bharata pungava
drashtum bharata pungama
Tatra brahmarshaya sarve.
tatra brahmayasya sarve
Varshayascha satama.
devarasya sattama
Varshayascha tatrasan.
rajarasya sachatratam
Bharata pungavam.
utarashtam bharata pungama
Tatra,
tatra
there,
there
Brahmarashayaha,
brahmarasya
rishis among the Brahmanas.
rishi among the brahmanas
Sarve, all.
all
Devarashayaha,
devarasya
rishis among the demigods.
rishi among demigods
Cha,
cha
and
and
Sattama,
sattama
situated in the quality of goodness.
situated in quality.
in the quality of goodness.
Rajarashayaha, rishis among the kings. Cha, and Tatra, in that place. Asan, were present. Drashtum, just to see.
Just to see
Bharata,
Bharata,
the descendants of King Bharata.
King
Pungavam, the chief of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, Bhishma, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis among the demigods, brahmanas, and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. Purport. The rishis are those who have attained perfection by spiritual achievements. Such spiritual achievements can be earned by all, whether one is a king or a mendicant. Bhishma Dev himself was also one of the brahmacharis and the chief of the descendants of King Bharata. All rishis are situated in the quality of goodness, all of them assembled there on hearing the news of the great warrior's impending death. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshuranmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Putane Swayam Rupa Karamahyam Vada Viswapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Sattva Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalitha Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandhu Jagatpede Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Virdavaneshwari Varshabha Sudi Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpani Vyascha Kripa Sindhubivacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namne Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Tatra Brahmarshaya Sarve Devarshayascha Sattama Rajarshayascha Tatrasan Drashtum Bharata Pungavam. Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, Bhishma, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis amongst the demigods, brahmanas, and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. So, again, Bhishma Dev, he's not only one of the 12 Mahajans, but he's also recognized as the best among the 8 Vasus. Ashtavasu is Prabhupada indicates one of his names also is. And we look especially in this verse, we see it states that there's all these great personalities who have assembled just to see Bhishma Dev. And there's not just any, these aren't just any old personalities that we see that are showing up here. So we see they're all great souls, the rishis among demigods, brahmanas, kings. So externally, we'll also make this point that's covered here in today's verse. I'm covering, it says they're all especially in the mode of goodness. So of course, the idea is to not just want to rise to the mode of goodness. It is, of course, above passion and ignorance, but to want to reach Shuddha Sattva, which is beyond the modes, because even the mode of goodness is still contamination. And the pure devotee is beyond that. And of course, Bhismashtami being a pure devotee, even though one might just be in that mode of goodness, and therefore may appear to be qualified to do so many different things, like still we see that it's Bhismashtami who speaks, even in this assembly of all these highly exalted individuals, and gives instructions despite that. Again, he has much qualification to do so, being pure devotee, a great devotee of the Lord. I've heard this reference made, or this point made multiple times, that on the battlefield, when Bhismashtami is firing his arrows, this is his loving exchange with the Supreme Lord through battle. And these arrows he's shooting are not, it's almost like offering of flowers rather than just ordinary arrows that are meant to actually harm the Lord. Of course, the Lord can never be harmed, but he appears to be just to facilitate and reciprocate with Bhismashtami in that manner. It was very sweet. Of course, it's stated also in this purport that he's a brahmachari. I don't remember exactly where this is covered. I've also heard this mentioned multiple times, that I believe correct me if I'm wrong, he fought Parshuram in order to preserve that brahmacharya.
That's true. It's the Mahabharata.
Mahabharata, yeah, and that's why I'm also vastly unqualified. I mean, I haven't read Mahabharata, and I'm not very familiar with everything that's covered in there, so I can only speak on what I've heard from others who have and whatnot. But yeah, it's going as far as to fight a Shakti Vesh avatar in order to preserve that brahmacharya. So that's also quite amazing in and of itself. Of course, we're looking at Parshuram as practically committed, you could say, genocide 21 times over upon all the Kshatriyas, and he was willing to go even against that personality in order to still remain brahmachari. So talk about amazing determination. If we just observe the atmosphere, I remember reading this for the first time, going through the first canto. It's heart-wrenching. I mean, because you're seeing that the Pandavas, they arrive, of course, all these rishis and sages also get there. And the Pandavas especially are very overcome with emotion upon seeing Bhismashtami in this state. So he's laying, of course, dozens of arrows have pierced his body, and he's laying there, unable to move. And most people, for one thing, they would have left their body already. There wouldn't be, all this time that would have passed. I mean, think about it. He's in this situation. He's laying on this bed of arrows, and yet he's still cognizant. He's still laying, even though externally he can't move his body and whatnot. But his mind is still sharp. He's waiting ultimately, and he's waiting more than anything to get darshan of the Supreme Lord, which of course is described. Krishna is also here present in this assembly. So it's described specifically, if we go forward, I think it's 4 verses up. I'll go ahead and share the screen again. This is text 9 of this chapter. let's see, how can I'll just go here. Why does it do this thing? I'm really like kind of nothing, it's okay. Every time I try to click on this, like it does this thing at a time. All right, that's fine. So is this the one I was looking for? Yeah, so it's described specifically. Prabhupada makes this point in the purport. How he receives all these personalities upon. Yeah. So that's what that is. Okay, good, thank you. How he receives all these personalities upon them arriving to see him on this bed of arrows. Of course, it reads in this purport that Bhismashtami was one of the 12 great authorities in preaching this cult of devotional service, and therefore he could receive and welcome all the powerful sages assembled there at his deathbed from all parts of the universe. He was certainly unable at the time to welcome and receive them physically, because he was neither at his home nor in a normal healthy condition. But he was quite fit by the activities of his sound mind, and therefore he could utter sweet words with hearty expressions, and all of them were very well received. One can perform one's duty by physical work, by mind, and by words, and he knew well how to utilize them in the proper place, and therefore there was no difficulty for him to receive them, although physically unfit. And so here we see there's two things. Primarily that, again, the pure devotees engages perfectly all their senses in the service of the Lord, no matter what the condition is, no matter what the time is, no matter what circumstances there are. And that's pretty instructional here, because we see that even though, Bhismashtami, basically he's not affected by this state, and he still makes that he's still able to very nicely receive all who assemble in a proper manner. On a side note, this is something interesting I read. This was in Canto 4. How do I go to what's going on? There we go. And another point, I'm going to pull this up, on Indian customs, specifically receiving guests. Prabhupada makes a very nice point in the 4th canto, 22nd chapter. This is text 10. At this point, Prithu Maharaj, he's instructing his kingdom. There's an assembly of great personalities and then other members of his kingdom. And then after he gives that instruction, then the 4 Kumaras come on scene, and he's basically receiving them. Now, Prabhupada says here, in India, the custom is that even an ordinary person is offered a glass of water if he suddenly visits, and one cannot offer him foodstuff. If there's no water, then one can offer a sitting place, even if it is on straw mats. And if one has no straw mat, he can immediately cleanse the ground and ask the guest to sit there. Supposing that a householder cannot even do that, then with folded hands, he can simply receive the guest, saying, "Welcome." And if he cannot do that, then he should feel very sorry for his poor condition and shed tears and simply offer his obeisances with his whole family, wife, and children. In this way, one can satisfy any guest, even if the guest is a saintly person or a king. So, anyways, I thought that was an interesting point, because again, this Bhismashtami isn't even technically able to do any of these. I mean, again, he's brahmachari, so this is like specifically relating to householders, and it's saying and receiving a guest in that manner. But he literally can't move at all. But still, again, that point is made that he still nicely receives the guests that arrive. He speaks to them in a very pleasing manner. And what does he speak? We see that not what, but how, despite being overcome by emotion, both sides are. He's speaking with tears in his eyes. The Pandavas are very heartbroken upon seeing him in this state, and he speaks to them about how. He said the first couple of things he was saying is, especially in relation to the nature of time and providence, saying how their situations, technically, they should have never been able to overcome everything that they did. But interestingly enough, he makes his point. It's the 12th, text 12. It says, Bhismashtami says, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. So two interesting things here is that he's saying you don't deserve to be alive. You did not deserve to be alive under these tribulations. Because if we look, again, there's so many obstacles, so many different attempts were made on the lives of the Pandavas. Trying to think, there was maybe you can help me out here. I know there was
the house of wax.
What was that, Prue? Sorry.
The house of wax is spoken about in the eighth chapter of the first canto. Kunti Maharani speaks. The house of wax.
Mm-hmm. They tried to burn the house down with them in
there. Then the poison cake that they fed Bhima.
And then there was, and then just the whole battle of Kurukshetra itself is like there's so many great warriors on the opposing side that even though there's of course there's great warriors on both sides, but still there's like some really strong personalities on the other side, whom most would not expect to have met defeat, but because the Pandavas specifically had taken shelter of Krishna, as Bhismashtami is indicating here, protected by the Brahmanas, God especially, we see that they're able to overcome all these hardships. Another interesting point here is he's saying that you're suffering these terrible injustices for being the sons of religion personified, which is an interesting point because generally, like this is like a very basic point. It's like generally you commit pious acts, you get good activities, you commit sinful activities, and you get bad. You commit sinful acts, and you get bad results as a result of that. But still, just by being the sons of religion here, he's saying that you're just having to suffer some great injustices. Now, of course, externally, they did go through so much, and they were put through so much trouble. The point could also be made that if Krishna is protecting them, why is he allowing them to fall into all this difficulty? And one perspective, that is proper to have is that even though they're under all these difficulties, these are also pure devotees of the Lord alike. And just as Bhismashtami is able to be in this condition and still remember the Lord, still we see here like a little bit later in this chapter, he's offering prayers under the Supreme Lord. He's glorifying him. All this is glorifying the Supreme Lord. Despite his external circumstance, he's still able to remain cognizant of Krishna. So he's still able to stay Krishna conscious. And that's like a basic principle that we're seeing. That's the whole point, actually, more or less of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're seeing all these great devotees who are speaking and being instructional in that, giving instruction in that manner. So this aspect of taking protection or being protected also by religion. Those who basically don't try to transgress dharma are as a result protected by it. And that's also another thing that we see here, where the Pandavas and Bhismashtami is making that point that yes, there were so many injustices that were committed against them wrongfully, but still they even if the situation multiple times looked as though it wasn't going to play out in their favor, always the Supreme Lord looked out for them, and Dharma protected them especially as well. So in this next verse, Bhismashtami continues on. He's saying, as far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal, also because of your actions. So this is interesting because Maharaj Yudhishthira he was lamenting about having, he was feeling very guilty that this whole battle, he was feeling responsible basically for the multiple deaths of all these different soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He's feeling like this is ultimately all his fault, and he's to blame for so many different people having lost their life. It's a devastating thing. War is a pretty big deal. It's heavy because there's loss on both sides, And it's not just like those individuals who lead their bodies are affected. You have the family members who also are affected as a result of that. So there's a lot of people, for example, who don't see fathers and sons come home as a result of that. It's a heavy thing. This was the main opposing argument that Arjuna tried to put forward before Krishna corrects him, basically tells him, well, I want this to happen, so your opinion's moot. But he was claiming that, if we have this battle take place, then we'll have so many women who are unprotected as a result of this. So anyway, that's a side note, but specifically here, again, Maharaj Yudhishthira, after having lamented about this, having this battle taking place and him feeling responsible, Bhismashtami is pacifying him, as we see here in this 12th verse, and we also see in the purport, Prabhupada also speaks on that. I'll just pull it up briefly. Maharaj Yudhishthira was, can everybody see this okay, or should I go fully into it?
Say this.
Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I guess it worked. It's fine. All right. Okay, so I'll read again. This is from the.
Is that the right one?
Let me see.
This one,
I think it was this one. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so thank you. Maharaj Yudhishthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the Battle of Kurukshetra. Bhismashtami could understand this, and therefore he spoke first of the terrible sufferings of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was put in a difficulty by injustice only, and the Battle of Kurukshetra was fought just to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he should not regret the great massacre. Now, again, that point is there. So it's interesting still, though, that, I mean, it's not like another perspective that's to be had, though. I mean, this Battle of Kurukshetra was largely spurred on, despite some individuals' argument that maybe this event actually didn't happen. But the disrobing of Draupadi was, of course, a key factor or a key event that spurred on this great war taking place. And while, of course, that was a great offense that was committed against Draupadi, the point could also be made that, I mean, this all was taking place, or that was the climax of basically a gambling match that had taken place. And it could be said that if Yudhishthira Maharaj, if this gambling propensity wasn't as prominent, if he didn't basically gamble, then maybe this whole thing that wouldn't have happened, and then so many of the events that followed wouldn't have had to take place. And then Queen Kunti wouldn't have had to suffer as a result of all this. So it's ironic, I guess, because you still see Bhismashtami, he's pacifying Maharaj Yudhishthira, but then he's also claiming that you're not the only one who suffered as a result of this. I mean, and your actions also have a role to play. So anyways, he's speaking objectively, but the other point I wanted to make here is he's claiming, again, just going back to that protection under Brahmanas, God, and religion. He's pacifying Maharaj Yudhishthira. He makes these points, and he says ultimately this is going on under basically the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. It's here, I believe he's saying, in my opinion, and of course, the opinion of the pure devotee is it stands supreme. So like, for example, when Krishna says, well, that is my opinion, it's like, okay, well, what greater opinion is that? So Bhismashtami says, in my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time that these actions have taken place, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. So he's making this point. He says, oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. And this is how, again, he goes back to basically justify all these reverses and terrible situations that the Pandavas fell into, but still were able to come out on top of. And he's explaining this because of the influence of inevitable time, which is non-different from the will of the Supreme Lord. And that's described in 3rd canto. He says, it is irreversible, otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Bhima, the great fighter with the club, the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. Now, he's making these points, and then further on, we see that he's asked to speak more specifically on the essential principles of various religious duties. Sutta Goswami says, Maharaj Yudhisthira, after hearing Bhismashtami speak in that appealing tone, asked him, in the presence, again, of all the great rishis, people who might be externally more qualified to speak on this subject matter, he asked specifically Bhismashtami to speak about the essential principles of various religious duties. And another thing here, again, we understand that the Vasus, again, Bhismashtami being one of the eight great Vasus, they're specific. They play a key role in managing universal affairs, and that can mean a lot of different things. I mean, I don't know that much specifically about the Vasus. I was trying to get some references on Vani quotes, but specifically, I mean, if you're managing universal affairs, there has to be a very clear and concise understanding of the duties of the people within it and how this system is supposed to function, which is why he's able to then give so much clear, concise information basically on how society is supposed to be set up according to religious code. Now, the pure devotee, and this is also another point that should always be remembered, that even though the Pandavas, of course, pure devotees, they're acting, they're Kshatriya family and whatnot, but the pure devotee is always going to be beyond such designations, just as one who's pure is beyond the modes of material nature. They're also beyond the designations that come about as a result of that also. Now, there's this point I wanted to touch on. This was made by His Holiness Bhakti-Vikas Swami Maharaj, and this Vanapras lectures, I think it was either part 3 or part 4. He speaks on leaving. Of course, Vanapras means you leave, you retire from home. Sometimes you can take the wife with you, but you retire from basically materially entangling situations so you can begin to focus more on spiritual life. That's the whole idea. And he makes an interesting point that even if one is engaged in service at the temple, they're engaged in a lot of different activities, or maybe a key project that a lot of different people are relying on them for in devotional service, still that one should recognize how to act, I guess, within Vanapras, and know that it's still time to move on, because it can also be a form of Maya in and of itself, that we're remaining in this situation thinking that, oh, I need to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do so many things. And ultimately, if one doesn't actually start to detach themselves from that situation, then they might not be able to remember Krishna at the time of death, even if one is still engaging in whatever different projects and services at the temple. So it's again, it's really a lot of different nuances that Guru Maharaj covers in there. But again, I'm making this point because, again, there's how's it stated? I think it's Kim karma kim karmeti kavayo pyatra mohitaha. That's the first 2 lines. I know it's that even the intelligent are bewildered.
Tate karma pravakshyami.
Tate karma pravakshami, and
Yagyatva moksha sheshabhat.
okay.
Tate karma pravakshami yagyatva moksha sheshabhat.
Is it? Yeah, Moksha Sheshabhat? You sure?
Yeah, that verse is also there in the 9th chapter. It's like that. That must be 4:12, I think, 4:12.
Mhm.
Tate karma
I think
pravakshami yagyatva moksha sheshabhat.
I thought it was 16. Maybe I'm wrong, but
No, what you're talking about is 6:10, but he's talking about a different verse that has that same.
Yeah.
Anyways, that point is made that what is action and what is inaction is very bewildering.
The chapter 4 for sure. Chapter 4,
That,
text
yeah,
number
chapter
12.
4. I don't know.
Chapter 4, text number 12, I think.
No.
412
I
is
was talking about karma. How can it be chapter 4?
No, Prabhu, just listen to me. Just go to chapter 4. Look at it, either verse number 12, 13, or 14. It's one of those.
check this out. Yeah, I'm to blame. I should have written this reference down.
Must be
Can
Dhana origin.
see.
Chapter. This is not chapter.
416.
There you go.
Yeah, he's right. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. So
No
Kim Karma
problem.
Kim Karmati Kavaya Pyatra Mohita Tate Karma Pravakshami Yajnyatva Mokshase Shubhat. That even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. And then Krishna goes on to say here that now I will explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. So again, Bhismashtami, knowing, despite being above all these different religious codes and duties and whatnot, still knows how to act within that position, and that's one of the amazing qualities of the pure devotee, is that even though we might see that these personalities are beyond such positions, they still know how to act within it. And so it's also instructional in that manner. That when we have our roles and whatnot that we fall into, we have to still carry out that duty accordingly. And in doing so, we'll be protected by that. So again, now we see just after Bhismashtami gives us instructions, he speaks, and I'm not going to cover Prabhupada gives very nice purports that expand on pretty much like from text 25 to 29 or 28 especially. He's elaborating more on the divisions of society and whatnot that Bhismashtami speaks on. But then we see that immediately after he gives these instructions and he speaks on these things, he immediately prepares to leave his body, and he of course he does so at an auspicious time, which is also intentional, and that of course was why he's able to. I mean, he's able to remain in this position again, sitting on like a bed of arrows, not leaving his body because he's waiting to leave his body in an auspicious time. But especially to, again, as I said, achieve darshan of the Supreme Lord. He said, text 29 reads, while Bhismashtami was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Generally, mystics just die at their will so they can achieve a higher planet in the material universe. But of course, we see that Bhismashtami is shooting beyond that. And it says, thereupon in the next text, this is text 30, thereupon that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men, stopped speaking and being completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who stood before him, four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shined. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all living beings while quitting his body. And of course, he goes on then to offer some very beautiful prayers. He's glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, speaking on his position. But again, I guess I pretty much just prepared largely just to speak on Bhismashtami.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I won't cover anything else pretty much. There was one reference, this was loosely connected to one of the other points I was making, specifically about Vasus. Anyways, it was just speaking about how their role, I guess, in universal affairs. But basically, yeah, we see Bhismashtami was again, Krishna conscious at the time of death. He shows exactly how one should go about, leaving their body. I mean, and again, Krishna is so pleased. I mean, what he personally comes to see him, and then he appears before Bhisma did in that four-handed form, reciprocating with his devotee in the manner which he most wants to, I guess, or finds most pleasing to him. So again, there's so much more that could be said. Again, I'm sorry, there's little realization I can share because again, I'm neophyte and haven't read as much as some of the other people, but again, that's all I can really offer. So if anybody has anybody has questions, comments, corrections of any sort, you can go ahead and open up for that now.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, bro.
So, Bhismashtami is the day that Bhishma Dev left from this world. Is that?
That's what it says.
Bhismashtami?
Yeah, Bhismashtami, right? Today is Bhismashtami, right? Is that
Yeah.
is that what it says on the? So I'm sorry. Maybe I was like, I'm driving, so I don't know if it was 100%.
Was I supposed to speak on like his appearance day? Is that what you're asking?
That's what it says, but
I could have. I also looked it up to confirm.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it was the day he was passing, specifically. So I kind of prepared in that manner. I'm very sorry if I was wrong. Can we confirm?
anybody have anything else in regards to that? I'm
Yeah, does
pretty
anybody
sure it
have
was the
anything?
day.
I was pretty confident it was the day he's
Yeah,
passing.
because I don't know what Bhismashtami is, and like and Chandan, like I don't know if you remember in New York there was like this big thing about Bhishma Panchak, and like what is it? Like is it?
I thought the Bishop Panchak was not the.
Okay, so Bhismashtami is the day that Bhishma left this world. Is that what it is?
Look at this real quick.
In the Vaishnav calendar, it just like describes a biography of his life. It doesn't even talk about his death on the calendar.
So like, what is it? What is Bhismashtami?
At least in the ISKCON Vrindavan post that they made on Facebook, it says that on this auspicious day, we glorify Sri Bhishma Dev, whose final moments were spent meditating upon Sri Krishna. So, and then in general, I guess just the Google search says that it is the day of passing of Bhishma.
I see.
So
Okay.
that's,
All right.
yeah.
Yes, sorry. I prepared. So that's
There's
what
plenty of things that says,
Yeah, because I never looked into it, and like every time, anyway, I was always in a situation where I didn't get the time to do that. But
yeah,
okay,
it's
so
kind of, some places say differently. So yeah, it's kind of hard to
yeah,
exactly.
maybe that's a question we can ask Guru Maharaj when we meet him, huh?
Yeah, it is something
Take
to
my
ask.
phone, doesn't
I
have
don't
to
know.
Just questions for GM. We can type Bhismashtami.
This what this Bhishma Panchaka is and Bhishma Ashtami.
heard a couple times.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
I
Okay. So,
came up-
bro, Carudesna, I had another question.
Yes, bro.
So, you were speaking about how if Yudhishthir didn't gamble, then this whole thing would have been avoided.
Yeah.
Well, just that it was a key event. Maybe of course, I mean, Duryodhan, and he was pretty offensive. I mean, maybe still
Yeah.
some other.
No, all that is there, but I'm just asking you about this specifically. That
Yes, bro.
was Yudhishthir, was it his vice? Was gambling one of his vices, and that's the reason why he gambled? What were you saying? I'm trying to understand what you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying that gambling as a vice, like because that propensity was there, and I mean, because maybe I should have found a better reference for this, and if I spoke out of line, then I'd appreciate correction. But I could have sworn I was hearing this point from, I believe it was Vishnu who made this point in lectures. Like, I mean, Kshatriyas, I'm pretty sure they're allowed to they're allowed to gamble.
Yeah,
are they not?
because what I've understood is that when a Kshatriya is challenged to a fight or to gamble, he cannot refuse.
Oh, gamble! I know fighting. I knew, but gambling also. He can't
Gambling also. That's what I remember. But I was wondering if you had a reference for the point you were making.
I see.
Because that would have really cleared it up. Because he's accused like that. Yudhishthira is accused like that at least once or twice in the Mahabharata. But I don't know if that was his vice or he just had to do it out of duty. Because to me, it just seems like how someone Dharmaraj, this person has never lied in his life, never does anything immoral. How can he have a vice of gambling? You know,
Yeah.
doesn't add up. You know. So I was just
Yeah,
wondering
no,
if
that's
you
very
had a reference that I could, you know, that you could take us back to.
no,
Otherwise, I don't. I think he was just duty bound. From what I've learned, what I've understood,
that
it seems
that
like
makes
he was
more
duty
sense.
bound. It
I
just seems to
remember.
be more in line with his character. Also, it's not like it's just like, bro, let's gamble. Like, you know.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah, it's not this. Anyways, I think it was Draupadi who wasn't she she was chastising him basically, like if you
Yeah,
didn't have too much,
Draupadi.
but she was, yeah, that's not to say that his character is
That's
like,
like a whole thing in the Mahabharata also. But you know, yeah, you know, because in the Mahabharata it says that, you know, when and it's also there in the Bhagavatam, when the Kauravas attend the Rajasuya Yajna, you know, hosted by Maharaj Yudhishthira, Duryodhana is like feeling depressed out of envy. Excess envy led to depression. Okay? And then, you know, Shakuni is telling him, you know, why don't we just defeat them? And he's thinking, yeah, you're right. You know, we have Bhishma, we have Drona, we have Karna. I'm there. My brothers are there. He said, actually, you can't kill them with this, but you can kill them with dice. And then that's when the whole idea of, because Shakuni had he was an expert in gambling, and he had dice that he used that they would just like fall exactly the way he would want them to fall. So like, okay, now we need the numbers to be 6. He could just like with this potency just make 6 appear or 9 or whatever, you know. So it seemed it was more of their plot that they drew him into rather than his own advice. And
that makes more sense. And yeah,
Chandan, like, you know what I'm, you're talking about. Like, I don't think it was his vice per se.
it also, well, if we look at like Bhagavatam, I'm sorry, you trying to, if I think you're definitely right. I mean, because otherwise, why would Bhismashtami be saying like, you know, that you're suffering these injustices? I would think that there would have been like more
Yeah, I was
against that. Like if that wasn't the case, like he wouldn't have said, well, you're suffering this injustices, and that sounds like just another injustice, like that that they suffered.
Yeah,
being forced into that situation, basically.
Like the only injustice that Krishna says the reason the Pandavas suffered so much is because they didn't observe Purushottamas. Because they didn't observe Purushottamas, which comes every 13 years or so, they suffered so much. And then he made sure that they observed the Purushottamas after that. Right? Chandan, you remember reading this? You know, about this Purushottamas. Yeah.
This is Bhagavatam?
Okay.
Purushottam Adhikamas.
So just one point in that same line that where it came was that even though, you know, your father was a great follower of religion and you've tried to do the same, you've suffered greatly. I'm just thinking that that is, especially in Kali Yuga, it's a very difficult path to tread, to follow dharma, to stick with, especially we're talking about savai pumso paro dharma.
Yeah,
that
126.
To stick within the principles of paro dharma, this devotional service, to follow the regular principles. It's a very difficult thing, and we can expect those difficulties to come more actually than if you were to follow adharma. Now, as you were talking yesterday, saying whatever difficulty may come, you just got to go through it, and because, you know, whatever happens is at the end you're going to come out successful, because, you know, dharma rakshati, what is it?
Dharma rakshati rakshataha.
Dharma rakshati rakshataha. That one who protects dharma, and dharma protects them. So we should have deep faith that devotional service will always protect us. That just because we're performing that, you know, all those Pandavas, and they all went through so much suffering, ultimately they got, you know, they were
supremely victorious.
Supremely victorious, and they were, you know, they had the association of Krishna always, independent of all the difficulties that they had. And so, and Kunti teaches us that specific thing, of course. That whatever difficulties may come, let them come again and again. For when we see such difficulties, we actually see you, oh Lord. You know, when those difficulties come, we actually see you again and again. So we, you know, what are those difficulties when you see Krishna, as we hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that when one remembers Lord Chaitanya, all difficult things become easy. So we should just, it's a meditation to like these pastimes, and they really, even Bhismashtami, he's on lying in bed of arrows, he's feeling bliss.
It wasn't easy for you either, boss. You know?
is feeling bliss. Krishna's
Yeah.
come. It's like, whoa, what else do you want in life? And those arrows become so insignificant. He's
Yeah.
sleeping on a bed of arrows. You got that picture is there. It's so gruesome. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
But when you see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like we have that, sometimes you're performing service or you're doing something and it's intense, and you're playing mridanga or something. That's a good example. Mridanga in a harinam, and then you look down and your hand is half, it's completely it's cut down the middle of your hand. The mridanga is full of blood, but you don't feel a thing.
Yeah.
And absorbed in the ecstasy of kirtan. So you can, if we're absorbed in devotion service, we'll see those difficult things as Guru Maharaj said. I don't know if everyone's heard that lecture. It's like,
Blissful austerity in preaching.
that's there, but then just recently also in his Vyasa Puja, he said, yes, the difficulty is very good for us.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very
yeah.
good
Go
for
to
us.
Japan. Hey, America's hey, go to Japan. China
So-
too. I go to Prabhu. China too.
Like, and there's multiple types of difficulties. There's difficulties within endeavor to fulfill the mission of the spiritual master, and then there's difficulty in also just controlling our mind and senses, and specifically all the subtle stuff like Mahosa Prabhu was talking about, the ego and the all of these things. It's a hankering for name, fame, adoration, all of these things. And so there's kind of multiple things that play at once, but it requires us to kind of understand, okay, these are difficulties that I'm going to have, and not to become frustrated or, but to understand that because I'm trying to follow the path of Dharma, it's going to be
Yeah.
difficult, but the outcome is always going to be successful no matter what we do.
Yeah, you know the other part of that verse, Dharmo Rakshati Rakshata, you know what the other part of that verse is?
No, I don't know that.
Is Dharmo Rakshati Rakshata, Dharmo Hantati Hantataha. Something that's one who tries to kill Dharma is killed by Dharma.
Oh, wow.
One that's insane, right? Why don't we know the other part? Very crazy. But that's the other part of the verse, right? If you Dharmo Rakshati Rakshata, if you protect Dharma, Dharma protects you, but if you try to kill Dharma, Dharma will kill you.
Mm.
Now you can see, for example, like the British, they went and they conquered, they spread their flag, the sun never sets on the British Empire and all this, and caused suffering for so many people. But now they're getting full on. Now you look at their country, it's going to hell completely by the same people that they tried to subjugate, So it's just like, it's just because, they killed faith in the Vedic culture. And you can see it's all like it all comes back. There's no escaping. If you try to kill Dharma, Dharma will kill you. If you try to protect Dharma, Dharma will protect you. It's a very, very simple thing. And we can see so many people, even in the Krishna consciousness movement, so many zonal acharyas, this and that, big deal, saying all this thing about Dharma, and especially the worst thing, then one thing we should be very cautious of, especially with our Western psyche and Western mentality, is that it was in the right after Srila Prabhupada disappeared. There was two camps. One was a zonal acharya camp, and the other camp, whose speaker was none other than Pradyumna Prabhu. Right, Chandan, Pradyumna Prabhu. We met him in New York.
Yeah.
Right?
Pradyumna Prabhu. I don't think I met Pradyumna Prabhu.
1 minute. What do you say, Chandan?
I didn't meet Pradyumna Prabhu. I wasn't.
He used to live in the Bhakti Center, actually. Anyway, but he was on the other side, and he made this very, very important point. He said, "Look, we want a sampradaya to go on for so long, for forever, basically. So let's learn from the Madhvas and the Ramanujas how their sampradaya went on. The method that you are proposing is going to lead to chaos." And he was making his points systematically, properly, according to Shastra, according to Siddhanta, because Prabhupada personally trained this person. This is not an ordinary person, right? You know that Pradyumna Prabhu was trained by Srila Prabhupada, right? So Prabhupada personally trained him, so they were saying that, but then the person who was representing the zonal acharyas, they just, he just, didn't give a good answer, and then the zonal acharyas got really heavy, saying, why do we care about what the Ramanujas do? Why do we care about the other sampradayas who basically like we are the best? And because you have such an offensive attitude, that's why there's no book distribution going on in Vrindavan. Bro, Vrindavan at that time is a freaking village. What do you expect, And just using this idea of, we know everything. We can overcome dharma. We can overcome aitihya. Right? We can overcome all these things. We don't need to follow culture. We don't need to follow what's here. And because of that, you can see the disaster that wreaked after that. Right? We can see, but had they listened to this good, sagacious advice of following Guru Sadhu and Shastra, following Dharma, following aitihya, this whole disaster could have been averted. We've seen this so many times. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Is there any other questions? Because
I was just kind of offered. Anyways, I was going to say thanks for correcting that point. Specifically,
It was a clarification.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'd because I'm like when you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, that I definitely like quoted that like not properly. So, anyways, thank you for that. And then one just small thing, just because you were touching a little bit on like Western conditioning, because I was going to speak on this just briefly on that side point regarding like Indian custom and that aspect of culture and receiving guests and acting properly. It's like, anyways, as you contrast that, for example, like for example, when I would go over friends' houses and whatnot, or when like people come over to my house, it's like, hey, there's like, you can get this from the fridge if you want it, or hey, like yeah, like there's chips in the pantry, like yeah, go for it. It's all game. It's like there's no conception of like actually like wanting to like serve and like really like cook something, like prepare something nice for somebody. And anyways, that's like something so small, but anyways, the Western culture is like, what is this, culture? That's really been like a theme I've been meditating on, like over the last couple of days, last couple of classes, just like how strong and detrimental to spiritual life this like Western conditioning really is, and that we don't recognize how deep, or how much we're affected by it. Yeah, like we pay for it like big time in the future if we're not careful. So just that.
Guru Maharaj was talking about just in this lecture number 4, also same point.
Okay. I guess Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
jai, Papa ki jai.
Hey, Ramajoy class today?
Yeah.
Oh,
What
yeah.
time, Chandan? We are.
So if we can do it at you guys are all going to be in Atlanta together. So if we can do it at,
you all getting here?
you guys, what time do you have to be at the airport, Mahantsa Prabhu?
Our flight is at 9 o'clock, so 7 o'clock.
7. So maybe we can do at 5:30 your time.
So 4:30 your time.
Wait, yeah, that should be fine. Yeah,
Okay. Great.
that's not bad. All right, Jai Prabhu.